Stocks and Shocks, an introduction to the game. The aim of the Stocks and Shocks game is to develop your understanding of the stock market and the way that external factors can impact on the value of public limited companies, otherwise known as PLCs. At the end of this game, you will have as much profit as possible from your original investment by the close of the trading period. The person in your group who's made the most profit from their investment will be deemed the overall winner. The stock market. The stock market is a place where shares can be bought and sold in public limited companies by anybody who is over the age of 18. This is because the stock market is seen as a form of gambling, as the value of shares can go up as well as down. The price of shares fluctuates on a second-by-second basis. There are various different factors that can impact on the price of shares, some of which will be explored in this activity. Trading in the stock market is seen as a form of gambling. You need to remember that when you are buying shares, you're actually risking your investment. So buying £10 worth of shares today may not be worth £10 tomorrow. Clearly the aim is to make as much money as possible. So hopefully an investor will see their £10 being worth maybe £15 tomorrow, but they do have a chance that the shares could go down and they may only be worth £5 tomorrow. And that's why you have to be 18 to take part in the real stock market. Now you're going to be given a very special stock market for this game, called the Bee market. However, there are various different markets that exist all over the world. Some of the stock markets you may have heard of are the FTSE 100, which is otherwise known as a FTSE 100, and that's the top 100 companies in the UK. You've also got the FTSE 250, which clearly is the top 250 companies in the UK that sell shares. In America, you may have heard of the Dow Jones. And you may be looking at the DAX and thinking, which country does that come from? Well, that's a German stock market where all the technology shares are sold and bought. But there are many markets all over the world. But of course, we're going to use our special market. Here is the Bee market. And you can clearly see here all the shares that you can buy within this game and the price. Now notice the share price is in pence. So you've got 200 pence. Now, you will hopefully know that 200 pennies are actually £2. However, shares are always sold in pence. So here we've got BP, an oil company. To buy one share in that company, it would cost you 200 pence. You could buy into BeeZjet, who are a transport company, and that would cost you 120 pennies, or £1.20. You could buy into BMart, who are a retail company, and that would cost you 100 pennies, or £1 a share. BeeBank in banking. BeePhone in telecommunications, BeeGem in energy, BeeTV in media, BeeTree in forestry, BeeMobile in telecommunications, and BeeSolar in energy. Now, typically, an investor will look to have a wide portfolio, so they'll have shares in different markets to try and spread the risk. Also, typically, companies that have a higher share price will be performing better. This could be because they've had more good news, or it could be simply because they report an increase in profits. But just because the share price is high does not mean that it's always going to yield the highest investment. And that's why this game is going to simulate the real stock market.
Now, in order to play the game, we need to make sure we've got some clear rules. So this game will be split into different trading periods, and you'll be given £20 or 2,000 pennies to invest in shares at the start of this game. You can buy shares in a maximum of 5 different companies from the Bee market at any one time. Now, you can buy and sell shares in each of the trading periods at the market value of the share price. So if the share price changes, that'll be the new price you either buy or sell your shares at. You can leave some money in the bank. However, consider the value of the risk versus the reward you might gain from buying or selling these shares or leaving money in the bank.
Because please remember that if you leave that money in the bank, £1 will still be worth £1. So you may want to consider sitting on some of the money. However, you may want to try and invest as much as possible to try and maximise your returns. Okay, let's get started. So in your student pack, you need to find your student share portfolio sheet. And we're going to first build up our portfolio and purchase our first lot of shares. So in the company box, you need to write in the name of the company you're buying shares in. Then you need to write in the share price box the share price you're paying in pence for each share. In the number of shares category, you need to write in how many shares you're going to purchase. And the total invested, you need to do the share price times the number of shares. Now remember, you can only spend a maximum of 2,000 pennies or £20. So you need to make sure that you've only bought shares up to that value. You can have some cash left over that you put into the bank, and you can only buy shares in a maximum of 5 companies. Let's take an example of Mr. Hardman's portfolio. He'll explain it to you now.
So here's an example that we've put together, and obviously down the left hand side we can see the companies that I have chosen to invest in. Then the next column is the share price, so the price it's cost me per one share, and then the number of shares I've actually bought. So let's look at the first one. We've got BP, and the number of shares I've purchased is 4, and each share price was 200, which clearly shows a total investment of 800 pence, or as we know, £8. This is seen throughout the rest of the table, as we can see BZ, Jet, BMart, BBank and BPhone. You can see the same calculations have been made to get that total investment of 2,000 pennies, which we know the overall value would equal £20. So the key is to remember it's the number of shares you buy multiplied by the share price, which is always in pence. This means it should always equal up to £20 for your investment.
Yeah, so if you don't spend all your money on shares, you need to obviously put your cash remaining in that column and add your total invested to cash remaining to make sure that your overall value comes to 2,000 pennies or £20. Okay, it's now going to be over to you. Use the information on screen to purchase shares in a maximum of 5 different companies. Remember that you can only spend a maximum of £20 on the shares, and make sure you record this in your student portfolio sheet. You may want to pause this screen now while you use the data on screen to complete your share portfolio.
Okay, so it's time to let the game begin. Now that you've completed this and brought your first set of shares in the B market, you are ready for the roller coaster of stocks and shocks to begin.
When you are ready, your teacher should click on the Trading Period 1 video from the BeeBusinessBee YouTube channel playlist. Let the game begin.